Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, the creations that you can see around me is something that I'm going to continue in this series. So, I have a metallic colour palette. You can see I've done a fluid swipe here, a dry swipe on this one and a dry swipe on this one. And on the background for these two, I've done a kind of swirly pattern. I'm not going to do a swirl on this design. I'm going to do something totally different. I can't wait to talk you through the process. I'm going to show you the colour palettes, show you the consistency that I use for the base colour, and then I'll also talk about the dry swipe on top. And this one's going to have completely different composition. I'm excited. I've got some ideas up here. I'm going to see if I can get what I've got from up here onto the canvas. So, as always, let's see what we can create. So on the base, I'm completely using just a Pebeo brand and 3 metallic colours. So as you can see, I've got an iridescent precious gold, an iridescent silver, and an iridescent copper. So they're my colours. I've gone for a large canvas again, but let me show you the consistencies. So with Pebeo, I almost find they're quite rich paints. I have mixed with just water, 1 part paint to 1 part water, but because these are metallics, you'll see that as it trickles off the spatula back into the cup, it does leave like a slight trace on top. And that's the same with all of these colours. So this is the copper, just a slight trace on top. And I'm going to use those 3 colours for the base. So let's go. So I'm just going to use my brush to spread the paint out across the canvas, and I'm starting with silver. So I'm going to add silver to the base and then build on that silver with a gold and a copper. So I'm going for gold on each end, and then I'll do the copper in the middle. But it's really about blending those colours in. So I have that silver base, I'm placing some gold on top, and then some copper in the middle. And then it's about blending in all those 3 colours across that full surface area on the canvas before I do a completely different background. Have you guessed what I'm going to do yet? So previously I've done some swirls, I've also done some hatchwork, some squares. What else is possible? Well, the list is endless, but today is definitely a new experiment, and I'm going to do a completely different background. So if you want to have a guess before you see it, drop those in the comments below. So I've got a dry brush and I'm going to do zigzags. I'm going to do zigzags all the way across this canvas, starting on one end and just zigzagging all the way to the other. I'm just going to go in random lines. I'm not going to do straight lines necessarily, but I'm just going to go over those zigzags one by one. So I'm just going to place that brush onto the canvas, and I'm using that fluid paint that's already there to create those patterns with this brush. The paint that I'm using, remember, it's only paint and water, acrylic paint mixed with water, 1 part paint to 1 part water ratio, and that's enough fluidity on the base to produce these kind of patterns. So zigzags it is for this one, and this is going to turn out completely different, but this is purely metallics. So a gold, a silver and a copper on the base, and then I'm going to swipe with some different colours. I'm really happy with the zigzags. It just gives different texture, a different look with the pattern. Let me take you in for a closer look. It does actually look quite chaotic, but trust me when I say it's going to be a great addition to this series, because when we do that dry swipe over the top, that detail underneath is going to really help that dry swipe pop. So I'm going to place this to one side, let it dry, and then we'll continue with the process. So I've placed my embroidery hoop in the area that I find most interesting. So the circle itself shows all those different colours and that zigzag pattern. And on the outer edge of the embroidery hoop, I'm adding black and white paint. So half of this hoop will be black, the other half will be white. But the idea is to have more of a grey and black look when I do the swipe. But you'll see exactly what I mean as we continue with this process. And I should have said at the beginning, the black and the white, they're both by Dale Rowney. They're the fluid acrylics, so I haven't added any water or any pouring medium to this. This is how they come out of the tubes. So it's a titanium white and a Mars black. So now I've got the black and the white down around the outer edge of the circle. I'm going to take each metallic colour one by one and add that on top. So I'm adding the gold, the copper and the silver. So now I'm going to take the sponge brush and I'm literally going to swipe that paint that we've just laid around the outer edge of the embroidery hoop to the outer edge of the canvas. So just dipping the sponge into the paint and dragging that paint to the outer edge. But again, don't worry too much about the outer edge of the canvas because we're going to do some spray paint later. But let's just enjoy this part of the process and focus on this element. So dipping that sponge brush into the paint and then dragging that paint to the outer edge. But we're going to build this with layers. We're going to do a couple of other things before we're going to move on to the spray paint. So let's do this bit first. Just going to swipe that black and white paint out to the outer edge. And I go over it again because I don't want that white paint to be pure white. I almost want it to have like a grey silver effect. So because this is a metallic creation, I want to add some more metallics to these swipes. So I'm adding a little bit more of the copper, a little bit more of the gold, and I'm just placing some small circles of colour on top. And then what I'll do is I'll use my sponge brush to swipe that in and blend that in with those colours. So all these swipes are still wet, they're not dry, so that's why I'm adding them into each area. And then I'm just going to go over the top gently to blend some of those metallic colours into that black. I'm now going to remove the embroidery hoop. And what I've noticed is the circle itself will need a little bit of tidying up once it's dry. I'm going to do a more defined black and white line in the middle of that circle, just for a little bit more definition. But let me show you some of that detail and how those swipes have turned out with some of those metallics underneath. So I'm just going to go over some of these swipes with some gold, because I really want gold to help with that pop and that shimmer of light. So I'm going over each swipe with gold. Remember right at the beginning I said this was about layering, adding layers and blending. So we started off with that zigzaggy background, and then I placed some black and white paint around that circle with a little bit of the metallic colours in between and swiped it out. And then as each layer dried, I'm going over the top again, and this time with the gold. I really love this layering effect and adding these extra layers on top. And I'm also going to do a more defined white and black part of the inner circle. So I'm outside in my garden, I'm using my gold spray paint. So I would just say, always follow the safety instructions when you're using anything like this. Ensure that you wear a mask and that you're in a well-ventilated area. But I really can't wait to reveal to you the end outcome, the creation once it's finished, because dare I say it, and I know I say it a lot, but it might just be one of my most favourite ones. So are you ready for the reveal? So you'll see I've done a defined white and black line in the circle, and I've done that spray of silver and gold around the outer edge. I love it. I love the zigzags on the base. It's a completely different look for this kind of creation. Previously I've done swirls, I've done hatching, and yeah, the zigzags work. And now my mind is full of other ideas that I'd really love to experiment with too, because let's face it, once we do a creation, if we allow ourselves to be in that creative process and just be, all those other ideas are going to come flooding in and Guys, I've got a long list for 2026 and I can't wait to explore and evolve. A big thank you to each and every one of you for watching me week on week and for all of your love and support. It doesn't go unnoticed and I'm really, really appreciative. So let me know what you think about this one. Drop those in the comments below. I read each one. But more importantly, thank you for being here. Have a great week ahead and I hope I get to see you again in the next video. Have a great week, everyone. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you soon. Bye.